What's up, guys? This is Manoj Poptani. I welcome you all on behalf of the Edupedia world. So, guys, all of the viewers of Edupedia world who have been waiting tirely about this videos, lectures on corporate and allied laws. So, this is the moment for you guys. The wait is extremely over now. So, right after this particular presentation, all the topics will be covered one after the other. Okay. Perfect, guys. I'll be sharing with you the basic topics with relation to the Foreign Exchange Management Act 1999 in this particular presentation. So we'll be starting it with the normal kind of definitions, the major definitions that are being covered in our CA final course, and this as regarding this particular act, that is the Foreign Exchange Management Act FEMA 1999, and thereby we'll be keep moving with our respective kind of stable pace so that we can make you understand each and every kind of topic with which you can deliver things on time. So are you guys ready? Perfect. Fasten up your seatbelts. We are about to take off with the first presentation with corporate allied laws. So in this presentation, I'll be first of all covering about the definitions. So guys, let's understand some of the definitions which are the major one as far as this particular act is concerned. So the first thing is first. So we are studying about the Foreign Exchange Management Act. So foreign currency comes first by default. So foreign currency, guys, means any of the currency which is other than Indian currency as per the layman or the kind of knowledge which is being imparted by the Baer Act. So that's very simple kind of a definition which is provided over there as well. So this is that foreign currency means any currency that is other than the Indian currency. Simple. Fair enough. So that is covered under section 2 subsection M. Okay, and get this thing very much clear in your mind, guys, that unlike any other subject which I just like any other subject which we usually cover up in our day-to-day routine, whether be it auditing, be it SFM, be it any other subject, it is imperative for you to understand the importance of regular and recurring revisions. So whatever the kind of topic that you'll be covering over here, you need to have that kind of endeavor that you need to revise and retain that particular topic on your own self once we complete the same with you over here. So you need to revise those topics time and again, because that is going to ensure that you don't flunk in your CE final examination. So revision is the key to sail through CE final examination. So that's first and the most important thing which I would like to discuss with you guys. So, and next thing is the definitions part. So institute is very much adamant and strict on one thing, that is the definitions which are being provided in the Baer Act. Whenever the question asks you up in regarding to provide them the kind of definition this particular terminology is having, so always ensure that the definition should be exactly the same kind of words that are available in Baer Act in that particular act. So why? Because you can change the kind of language with respect to any of the paragraphs or layout which are being provided later on. But as far as the definitions are concerned, they have to be on the same lines, they have to be on the same straightforward things which have been mentioned in the Baer Act. So you need to be aware of this situation wherein you don't get deviate as far as the definition part is concerned. So you'll have to write it exactly the same which has been provided in the Baer Act itself. So even I have incorporated the complete sentences in order to make sure that you don't get some kind of misconfusion or misconception with regarding any of the definitions. So you need to get that clear. So it has to be written in the very same manner as it is being included in the Baer Act. One. Second, the important section is very much important in any of the law paper, be it CA final law, be it CS law, be it CW law, be it LLB. Okay, so sections are very much important in any of the laws. Remember this one thing very much clear in your head. Unless and until you are aware and completely sure of the section, do not quote the same in your examination sheet. If in case you are 100% sure about the section and subsection, then only quote both of them. And if in case you have a single percent, 0.1% ambiguity in your mind regarding any of the confusion, so please, it's always better not to quote the section anyway. So it has to be kept in mind while writing any of the section. Providing the section in the answer sheet definitely creates a good like impression on the person who is going to check your paper, invigilate the same. But if in case you do write a wrong section, that's going to impact your paper badly. So always do write section only when you are 100% convinced about its actual being. So it has to be like section 2M for foreign currency, then only then quote it. If in case you have like a single person ambiguity in your mind that it may be section 2 subsection N rather than M, please don't quote it. Be it only like section 2, that's it. Don't quote the subsection in that case. So that's the number 2 thing which is extremely important to consider. Perfect guys, I just wanted to brief you up regarding these 2 things while I was telling you about the definitions. So the first definition is foreign currency. So foreign currency means any currency other than the Indian currency. Next is foreign exchange. This is covered under section 2 subsection N. Okay, so foreign exchange means foreign currency. Okay, simple. It includes deposits, credits, balances payable in foreign currency. It includes drafts, traveler's checks, letters of credit or bills of exchange. The ones which are expressed or drawn in Indian currency but are payable in foreign currency, or which are drawn outside India but payable in Indian currency. So this is the particular definition of foreign exchange. So by foreign exchange, now this is definition. Okay, now get into the like conceptual knowledge with relating to the same stuff. So guys, anything which is coming out of the country, we being living in India currently, so our exchange is basically in terms of rupees. Okay, our currency, our Indian currency is rupees. Okay, so anything which is coming from outside India, be it taka from Bangladesh, be it Pakistani rupee, be it Nepali. Okay, so anything. I'm not just talking about dollars, pounds, euro. I'm talking about any other currency which is coming outside from outside the nation. Okay, so that is the foreign exchange for the nation. Okay, that means the foreign currency, and it includes any kind of deposit. Okay, any kind of credit, any kind of balances payable in foreign currency, any kind of draft that is being provided from in dollars into India, any kind of traveler's checks from like pound, euro in India, any kind of letter of credit from any of the company on behalf of any other bank into Indian bank. Okay, so that's also being covered into foreign exchange. Any of the bills of exchange which are being like expressed or drawn in Indian currency but are payable in foreign currency. Okay, these are made in Indian currency but are payable in foreign currency. Okay, so that will also be considered into foreign exchange. Again, the kind of bill of exchange which are drawn outside India but are payable in Indian currency. The ones that are being like drawn in Britain or say US but are payable in Indian currency, so that are also again considered into foreign exchange. So clear guys? Perfect. So that is the basic 2 definitions, foreign currency and foreign exchange. Let's move to our next definition. This one is foreign security. So guys, any security, a particular security which is denominated or expressed in foreign currency is basically known as foreign security. It is being quoted under section 2 subsection O, and it includes securities expressed in foreign currency even if such security shall be redeemed in Indian currency or any form of return that is payable in Indian currency. So again, that is likely to be considered into foreign security itself. Perfect. Next will be the import. Import is covered under section 2 subsection P. Import means bringing into India any goods or services. Very simple guys. What we say whenever we usually talk with people or interact with people by saying that we are basically running a business of export and import. By import, I simply mean that I am getting some of the goods from outside of the nation into our nation. So that's import, bringing into India any goods or services. But if I like talk about export, which is covered under section 2 subsection I, so that means basically the taking out of the goods to a place outside India or provision of the services from India to any other person outside India. So export means basically providing the goods or services from India to outside India. So that's the simple stuff. So import is bringing something into India, and export basically means taking something out of India in order to provide outside, serve the people who are situated outside India. So that's export. So that's the basic definition between these three aspects: foreign security, import, and export. I am sharing and I have basically started out my presentation in order to make sure that you get aware of these definitions, though they never come in your examination. Okay, but you need to be aware about the kind of definitions, the kind of terminology that is expressly mentioned in that particular act in order to understand its basic. Okay, so that's generally the basic thing. Okay, this is not covered usually in examination, and rare of the rarest you'll be like finding any of the question wherein you'll be like directly asked, okay, kindly provide us the definition of foreign security. That's not going to happen. We are not working for IPCC level. Okay, in CA final you are basically asked on the CA final case studies related questions, though in allied laws straight question comes on, but still definitions are usually not asked. These are basically in order to make you understand about the basics of the act, so you need to be aware of the same once you start out any of the chapter. Okay, perfect guys, let's move to our next definition. So that will be transfer. It is covered under section 2 subsection ZE. So a transfer includes sale, purchase, exchange, mortgage, pledge, gift, loan, or any other form of transfer of right, title, possession, or lien. So guys, you get involved in any of the segment for like you just make a sale to me. Okay, you're selling some of the products. I come to your shop and I ask you, okay, are you going to sell me this particular product? You say yes. So that will be covered under transfer. I, being a purchaser, I purchase some of the utensils from your shop. Okay, so that will be covered under transfer. Again, you'll be like selling me up, I'll be purchasing it. Okay, or if in case we are just exchanging, let's suppose it's a barter exchange system. You come to my shop, I say, okay, go and purchase, go and have these shoes against what you are offering. So you are offering grains to me. Okay, I say, better you can take my shoes, and in consideration for the same, you can provide me the grains. So that is again an exchange. So this particular exchange is also being covered under transfer. Mortgage. By mortgage, I simply mean you have some of the property, okay, and you want some kind of loan. Okay, so what do you say me? Okay, that I'll be like happily able to serve you up once you'll be able to provide your property as mortgage, and I'll be like able to provide you the loan. So I'll do that. So this mortgage will also be covered under transfer. Or if in case you like pledge any of your security, okay, in respect of making or getting some kind of loan or advances, so again that will be covered under transfer. If in case you provide any kind of gift to your relatives, okay, so that gift will also be covered under transfer. If you like provide any of the loan to a person, be it your relative, be it your employee, be it your any other like family member itself, so again that will be covered under transfer. Or in any case, out of the same things, after like apart from sale, purchase, exchange, mortgage, pledge, gift, or loan, if in case you like go for any other form of transfer wherein you are transferring the right, the title, the possession, or lien of the same thing, so again that will be covered under transfer. So transfer is basically going to include all these effects in itself, and there is a difference between this term. I wanted to highlight this particular thing to you guys, so that is includes and means. So guys, there is a difference between includes and means. You must have like heard about this many of the times, because all the definitions which are like being pertinently like available in law, these usually have these two terminologies, like transfer includes, person includes, or like transfer means, person means. So means and includes are basically two different aspects. Means basically is an exhaustive list. Okay, means that Ram is a boy, that is means. Okay, so Ram is a boy, that's it. You won't be able to provide any of the distinguishing other factor in case of that. Okay, so means is this is it and this is it completely. Include is a thing wherein you don't get exhaustive list. Okay, so each and every aspect of some other thing can be included into someone. So transfer, if I'll say transfer means sale, so that is means, because transfer means sale. But if I say transfer includes, then in that case, sale, purchase, exchange, mortgage, pledge, gift, loan, all these things are included in it. So include is a very broader term, but means is a very narrow kind of a terminology. Means it is it and that's it, over. But includes is a non-exhaustive kind of a term, and it includes many of the things in itself. So that's the difference between these two things. Perfect, guys. Now let's move to our next thing, that is person. Person's definition is being defined under section 2 subsection U. So a person includes an individual, okay, like you and me. Person includes a HUF. In India, HUFs are like predominantly available. Be it any of the this Agarwal family, have heard about Gupta and Sons, Agarwal and Sons. So this is nothing but HUF, okay, Hindu undivided families. Next comes a company. So a company is also a person, okay, private limited company, public limited company. Again, this one person company. So this is also included in person. Next comes firm. Yours and my CA firms. So this is also a person. So any kind of firm. Next will be AOP and BOI. By EOP, I simply mean association of persons, and or a BOI. BOI, body of individuals, whether incorporated or not. Apart from this, every other artificial juridical person, again that will be covered under person. Apart from this, any agency, office or branch owned or controlled by such person. So again that is going to be covered under person. So a person includes an individual, a Hindu undivided family, a company, a firm, a AOP or BOI, whether incorporated or not, every artificial juridical person. Again, there is agency, office, branch owned or controlled by that person. So this is the exhaustive kind of list for transfer and person in that case. So I just hope that you guys got a complete clarity with these two simpler aspects as well. Now let's move to our next definition. So that is PRI, person resident of India. So guys, just now I told you about this thing. So I'll be having a particular approach with you guys in order to make you understand one thing, that what kind of questions usually come up in your examination. So I'll be covering them accordingly with this kind of same para or like same instance as well at the same time only. So this particular PRI, that is person resident on India, so it is covered under section 2 subsection V. So this question was asked in CA final examinations for 3 times, okay, 3 times, like almost with a gap of like 2 years each. So CA final examination was June 2009, then May 2011, and then May 2013. So it was covered under that. So let's understand, what does person resident in India basically mean. So a person resident in India basically means, now you got the point. In my last presentation, last slide, it was includes, okay, the person includes, but here it is written person resident in India. That means this and that's it. You won't be having any of the option wherein you can include any other thing apart from these 4 points. Why? Because it is written means over here. But had it been the case, it wouldn't have been like written includes over here. Then in that case, you could have included 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, as many points as you can. So means is an exhaustive kind of list. So a person resident in India basically means a person residing in India for more than 182 days during the course of preceding financial year, but does not include a person who has gone out of India or who stays outside India for or taking up any of the employment outside India, or for carrying an outside India a business or vocation outside India, or for any other purpose in such circumstances as would indicate that his intention to stay in India for an uncertain period. So these are the persons who won't be included in the list of PRI. Okay. Apart from this, person resident in India means any person or body corporate registered or incorporated in India. Person resident in India means any office, branch or agency in India owned or controlled by person resident outside India. And fourth, the person resident in India means an office, branch or agency outside India owned or controlled by person resident in India. Now I know that there is a bit of confusion and ambiguity as to what should be considered in PRI and what should be considered in PROI. So don't worry, I'll help you out with some of the examples so that you can correlate with the kind of situation. So guys, first thing is first. It's been written in the definition that preceding financial year. So guys, by financial year I simply mean the term financial year. It means that the period which is starting from 1st of April and ending on the following 31st of March. Like as usual, like we used to have the financial year simple 1st April to 31st of March. So that is financial year. Okay. By the term reside, what does I mean? What do I mean? So the word resided for more than 182 days. It basically implies that compulsive stay in India will not be considered. The word reside implies some kind of permanency. Okay, it has to be like a permanent kind of stuff that you stayed in the country for more than 182 days at a stretch. So therefore, if I quote you with an example, so where an kind of like air hostess or crew members which are working on a flight, okay, are employed by the airline outside India, is accommodated at the base in India during the period of their layover, then her staying in India cannot be regarded as a period of her residence in India. Why? Because she is not living permanently in India. So she is being like moving from one place to another. Okay, so that's not a continuous kind of compulsive period. Okay, that's not the permanent one. So in that particular case, that won't be regarded as a period of her residence in India. So residing basically means a permanent one. Next thing will be the term that is intention to stay outside India for an uncertain period. So let's suppose if a person goes outside India in such circumstances that his period of stay outside India is absolutely not certain, okay, then it cannot be said that he has an intention to stay outside India for an uncertain period. Okay, intention to stay outside India for an uncertain period, that has to be very much clear. Okay, if a person has to go in some circumstances but it hasn't been like known that whether his period of stay outside India will be like certain or not, that cannot be said in that particular case that he has an intention to stay outside India for a certain period. So that was even discussed in one of the major case laws, that was with R.P. Verma versus Union of India case. So that is again a thing. And believe me, in this particular case, citizenship is irrelevant. Okay, so citizenship is absolutely not relevant for determining the residential status of a person under FEMA. So it is totally dependent upon this 182 days of the permanent stay. Okay, and supposedly you as an employee, you went outside for the sake of your employment. Okay, and you have gone outside India. Okay, or there is a person who is actually staying outside India for the purpose of taking up the employment over there itself. So he or she in that particular case won't be considered into person resident in India. Why? Because they've already gone out of India in order to take up the employment over there. So we can't term them as a person resident in India anymore. So accordingly, as far as the FEMA rules are concerned, or there is a person who has gone outside India for some kind of business, okay, and he is carrying on that business outside India only. So in that particular case, he won't be called or referred into as the person resident in India, or in any case like any other purpose, for any other purpose wherein the circumstances suggest that they have an intention to stay in India for an uncertain period. So you cannot be sure about this thing. Okay, why? Because it's an uncertain period. It could be less than 182 days as well. So he or she in that particular case won't be considered under person resident in India. Okay. Next thing is any person or body corporate registered or incorporated in India. Simple. That's a very simple thing. So any other company, any other LLP or any other this firm. So who whatsoever, these are the persons who have been like registered and incorporated in India itself. So they will be covered under person resident in India. Apart from this, any office, branch, agency in India which has been like that has been set up in India itself. However, the same is being owned and controlled by a person who is resident outside India. So since the fact that the agency, branch or office is actually based out in India itself, though it is being owned and controlled by a person resident outside India, still that same thing is going to be covered under person resident in India only. Why? Because it's based out in India itself. Again, that will be a case wherein if the office and branch or agency is outside India, but the same is being owned and controlled by person resident in India itself. So that won't matter if in case the company or branch or agency is working outside India, though it is being controlled and owned by the person resident in India itself. So again, technically that will be covered under person resident in India itself. Perfect, guys. So I just hope that you guys got the complete clarity, the kind of examples that I just narrated to you. I'll be like concluding my video with the last definition, that will be like for PROI. So that's person resident outside India. It is being covered under section 2 subsection W. It means a person who is not a resident in India. So that's very much simple. It's about a person who is not resident in India. So that is PROI. So I just hope I was able to provide you some kind of light, the kind of understanding with respect to these definitions. And the kind of motive that I had in my mind while discussing these definitions with you was so that I can make you aware of the differences between means, includes, and how to write these definitions whenever you are actually asked in CA final examination. So in all these examinations, CA final June 9, May 11, May 13, when the person who is like been setting up the paper, if he asks you up, so to provide them the definition, so he or she is actually asking you to provide them the same exact wordings of that definition. Why? Because it's a definition which has been like provided by an act. So you can't you cannot just you're just not allowed to provide for any of the word that is not based out or like provided in that act during while providing that definition in the exam sheet. So you need to ensure that you provide the words as it is, which is being available in the bare act. So that's the thing for definition. If in case you are quoting the section in that particular stuff, so it has to be remembered accordingly. So I just hope I was able to provide you some light on that, and sure that you guys did enjoy this particular presentation. So we'll be discussing about the other relevant topic as far as this FEMA is concerned in my next forthcoming presentation. So stay tuned. We'll be having like a lovely bond for that matter in the future. So definitely it's a long video presentation series which is about to come for your kind perusal. So stay tuned. Perfect. I'll be concluding my video with a dose of motivation, and that will be the will to win, the desire to succeed, the urge to reach to your full potential. These are the keys that will unlock the door to personal excellence. This quote was being mentioned by Eddie Robinson, and that's extremely genuine and a very frank advice that he is actually providing you up, guys. So you need to have that kind of will to win the game. You need to have that kind of desire, burning desire in your belly that you need to succeed. And again, that urge should come out of you as a person, that you need to reach to your full kind of potential. So once all these three things are going to happen, no, these are the essential ingredients for success in your life. And once these three are available in your life, so you'll be able to unlock any door for your personal excellence. Believe me, that is likely to be required from your end. So stay motivated and stay confident with each and every kind of work that you're doing currently, be it CA final, be it anything in life. Have that kind of vision wherein you'll be like performing each and everything with 100% conviction. And believe me, that day is not far when you are going to change your fortune, your parents' fortune, your family's fortune, your relatives' fortune, every other person who is like being surrounded by you, you'll be able to change their fortune as well. Perfect, guys. Thank you on behalf of the Edupedia world. Keep interacting via questions, queries in the YouTube comment boxes. We love to help you out with your queries and grievances. Stay connected. That will help us in understanding your needs way better.